Hi, welcome back to my podcast. Joining me today is my friend and colleague Paul Shaw, who is based out of United Kingdom. Paul and
Hi,
I were colleagues in NatWest Group. So Paul is also an executive coach, and he started his own company now by name of Rock Executive Development. So welcome, Paul.
thank you. Hello, it's good to be here. I'm interested to see how it's going to go, since you've coaxed me out from underneath my security blanket of privacy. So, yeah, let's go. Of
Sure. Sure. Thank you for accepting my invitation for today's conversation.
course.
Yeah, let's get started.
Yeah, for sure. So, as you said, you and I worked together closely in NatWest, and I finished with NatWest mid last year. Kind of
Mhm.
stepped into Rocky Exec Development, but before that, there's a whole host of things I've done. I kind of physically situated not too far from Oxford in England, and lived here for 20 plus years, with my wife and my two boys. Um, yeah, and I grew up not too far away, just a kind of hour or so drive away. So I did my schooling and that kind of thing there. Not that I was particularly successful at school, I would say. That's another story. But yeah, my career has been uncharted, I would say. It's been a little uh, yeah, adventurous. I started out life as an electrician. Way back when I
Mhm.
was 16, I left school as soon as I could. It wasn't the way that I learnt. So I left as quick as I could. Yeah, so I've done installation and testing of electrical stuff and data cabling, a lot of data. Um,
Mhm.
then into software training. So I took a bit of a jump. I didn't have a computer at the time. This is way back in the 90s. But I got a job as a software trainer. Did that for a few years, built a small private company again, up around that. Yeah, and then life kind of took some turns. I joined a retailer, um, and large UK retailer. Back in the day, used to be a catalog retailer, so paper
Correct.
catalog on, they used to say 80% of UK coffee tables had one of these Argos catalogs on them, and supported them with supply chain development for 10 years. So cultural process, people change, and then joined the bank to do project and program management. And I was okay at it, I would say. But where my heart was kind of in the development and adult development space. Coaching came along. There's a leadership program that you'll be aware of, and I got a spot on the coaching team and haven't really looked back. That's kind of how I've come to be in and love the coaching world. Kind of get my AOEC or PCC accreditation, and then get team accredited, and now I am supervisor of executive coaches, etc., etc. So yeah, yeah.
Wow. Very nice, Paul. So I'm curious to ask you, what or who inspired you to make coaching as a full-time profession?
It's odd because I didn't really know it was a full-time profession, or that you could do it full-time. There was a point, which I probably alluded to a second ago, which is I was okay as a project manager, program manager. That was okay, but I wasn't great. So I was speaking to my line manager at the time, and she
Mm-hmm.
was like, "So which bit of the job do you really enjoy then?" And I was like, "I love it on one-to-one with a team, and getting them and supporting them to grow and seeing them accomplish great things." And she said, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
right. So what have you ever thought about kind of moving into kind of coaching world? In fact, there's this program that's starting up inside the
Mm-hmm.
bank." I was like, "No, but I'll give it a go." And that's what moved me into kind of leadership development to begin with. We were called coaches, but it was kind of loosely coaching as we might now know it. Um, yeah, and got me exposed to senior leaders in the organization pretty quickly, and went through a real steep learning curve. And that's the kind of pivotal point, I would say.
Okay.
How I ended up doing this wonderful thing. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. So is there any childhood memory that quietly shaped you how you lead or coach today?
Um, it less of a less of a memory, more of a feeling of trying different things. I guess I'm here now, having had the opportunity, I guess, to experiment with all sorts of different types of coaching. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember experimenting with all different types of things when I was young. So that kind of has stayed with me, and perseverance to try and find something that suits me, me
Mm-hmm.
me as a coach, as opposed to trying to be somebody else as a coach. Yeah, so I did a lot of trying to work out what I wanted to do with my free time, and it turns out that I really wanted to ride horses, and I none of my family were into that. It wasn't really something on our radar, but I was quite persistent as a kid, and I asked my mum and dad, like when I was 4, what's it like to ride a horse? What's it like to ride a horse? And they were like, we don't know. Go away.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, they relented, and that kind of, from when I was 6 to when I was 13 or so, I was there twice a week, and weekends, etc., etc. So yeah, quite a formative part of my, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
And a lot of times as coaches, Paul, we also get that question that what is the difference between coaching and mentoring? So would you like to
Mm.
share with our listeners?
Yeah, I think there is well, firstly, there's a kind of chasm of understanding around coaching itself, isn't there? Which is Um, a lot of people's first experience of coaches is on the sports field or in the
Mm-hmm.
sporting arena, where they get advice and guidance and pointed and shouted at sometimes, and they think, oh, coaching is probably not for me. But then there's a kind of moves through the gradient of kind of, total instruction to, let's collaborate together, and then this kind of partnership type thing that exists, where even though as a coach you may not be on the same salary grade, on the same, with the same
Yeah,
benefits, with the same, you have to show up as a peer, otherwise it becomes a supplier relationship. Whereas
exactly.
mentoring very much sits in, for me anyway, sits in that I've done this before. Some of what I might be able to bring as experience might give you a way out some of your stuck position that you're in. That kind of feels like mentoring. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. And I think you started your coaching journey more than 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But probably 15 odd years ago. And the latter
Okay.
part, as you know, with the most senior kind of folk around financial services for NatWest, and both franchise and the functions as well, and one-to-one a team. Yeah, I've had it's been quite bit of a golden ticket in terms of coach development. I always think I'm
Mm-hmm.
super grateful for the opportunity to have done that. And now I want to, share a little of that around and about a bit more widely. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I was going through your LinkedIn profile. I think you moved from change management to coaching.
Mm.
So I'm curious to know how were the first few days, during that transition for you?
It felt like an alien world.
Mm-hmm.
So I went from knowing a lot about, but not entirely enjoying the rigor of the project management world, where you get a brief, you write the benefits, you get that agreed through governance, you then develop a plan, it's agreed through governance, the risks and the
Yeah.
radar log and all that kind of stuff is created, and then you do it, or you try and do it. Um, to being said, okay, here's some tools, but it's not obvious which ones the leaders might find useful to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Go and have a conversation. These things will emerge, and I'm like, really? Sure enough, after I kind of settled some of the nerves, and it took probably a few months really of not
Yeah.
feeling like I was just in a spot in an office having a conversation with a person I was just not didn't have much in common with at all. To then start to provide a little bit of support for them to do their change. And I think change is an interesting thing. So change
Yeah.
management for a corporation and an industry, corporate banking is where I kind of started, and then for a change for an individual, for them to be able to get under the hood of what's slowing them down or what's stopping them, and being open and honest with themselves requires for me anyway, requires a real kind of deep um, contract of trust, of understanding of what's enough, what's too much. And
Yeah,
that builds over time. And you've got to, in some points, you've got to just be willing to risk breaking that rapport just a little bit, in moments for something to emerge which is new or different or exciting. Yeah.
absolutely, Paul. You reminded me of my own times during that transition because before I came into coaching, I was also in risk and compliance.
Yes. Of
So, like
course.
you said, yeah,
Yeah.
in risk and compliance, you're backed by policies and procedures. You're supposed to be very, very to the point,
Mm,
as a risk manager or
mm,
as a risk oversight manager, which I was. So, when I moved into coaching, I mean, I could feel a lot of change because here you could not give any advice. And there was that inner nudge, every time I was listening something from the coachee or the client, that why should I not give this person advice? I've experienced this in my own life. So I had to really stop myself and,
mm.
improve on that curiosity.
Yeah, I think that's a real skill to develop because I think there's a real sense, certainly in the corporate setting,
Yeah,
that if you're showing up, you've got something to give. There is something that you will provide which will make things better, and
exactly.
jolly well get on with it, right?
Yeah,
But so to hold that back and just to hold a frame and create the conditions for them to do some or us to partner together to do some work is yes, it's a real skill. Yeah.
absolutely. And when I was coming into coaching, one of the co-participants said coaching is a journey, which I completely agree with.
Mm,
Even if I've been in the coaching space, for 6+ years in organizations like Boston Consulting and NatWest, working as a full-time coach, but I still feel every session teaches you something.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's, yes.
Yeah, when you say it's a journey, I've got you know this, I think, but I always think of the coaching in an arc. Yeah, so
Mhm.
there's kind of beginning, middle, and an end, but there is kind of like this arc through both the session, that kind of hour and a half, whatever. But there's also the arc of the journey of the whole, 6, 8, 12 months of coaching.
Yeah.
And so and sometimes it kind of falters and sometimes there's gaps and so but ultimately there's this kind of arc of learning,
Hmm.
which I always arc of experience Amy Cuddy talks about, which I have a connection to every time she talks about that. Yeah.
Excellent. All excellent. Thank you. So, this conversation is giving me another curiosity
Mm.
that a lot of organizations nowadays are understanding the importance of building a coaching culture.
Mm. Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you
Yeah.
share some views on this?
Yeah, I think if you can do it, it's an amazing thing to create. Even if you can just create pockets in large organizations where there's a,
Hmm.
a culture of, because you need to create safety.
Yeah.
You need to kind of create diverse thinking, but also you need to create this curiosity, like you were just mentioning, being curious about not just the immediate, what appears to be the right answer, but giving the
Yeah.
time and space and conditions to go, okay, so what else? That classic coach question,
Hmm.
what else? And just sit with it for a minute. But what I've seen happen quite neatly is when you do that and do it successfully, it's quite contagious. So those people or teams that just kind of sit around that area kind of get infected in a good way with some of the peace and that comes with it and some of the excitement that comes with it,
Hmm.
and leaning into the some of the ambiguity. So it does have this tendency to build advocates through an organization, in unspoken ways, just experiential
Exactly.
ways. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Hmm.
Mm,
And I can resonate with you what with you just shared. We have also gone through that journey ourselves as coaches, with organizations which we have worked with. And there is a major change or see amount of change that we start to see, when managers start to conduct coaching sessions with their direct reports,
mm,
because they are giving them that space to, express themselves, to share how they are feeling. And in this whole process, they also build a new skill of
mm,
coaching their people, right?
mm. Oh yeah. And they if they lean into this, they realize what can be found out. and then accomplish by not making assumptions. So a lot of the people that I work with, especially if they're trying to improve their levels of delegation so that they can build capacity in other areas, but they have an assumption set that the
Mm-hmm.
people who report to them, when they come to them with a problem, they have to
Mm-hmm.
solve it for this person. And that's a kind of, directive mindset for the most part. But when you start to get into this coaching and just stopping and pausing, saying, what is it you need from me right now?
Ex-
It just opens up a world of, well, I'm just telling you, right? I'm just telling you because it's on my
yeah,
mind. I'm going to sort it. I just need you to know that it's not quite right now. Or can you give me like some thinking frameworks to access, different parts, or yeah, even if they say, I need you to fix it right now for me. Like, right, well, what's going on? Why do we need to, why is it on fire? Are the wheels coming off? That kind of thing. So yeah, it's a really interesting spot.
absolutely. And you've reminded me of my most recent post on LinkedIn, and with a beautiful question that if you had a magic wand,
Yeah.
what would you like to change?
So are you asking me that question now? Because I've got
Yeah.
off in my yeah. So if I had a magic wand, what would I change? I would change in all corporate settings. If you give me a magic wand, right? So in all corporate settings, I would change the way that we'll say coaching, but adult development is talked about. And the
Mm-hmm.
reward system, both recognition and financial, would
Mm-hmm.
pivot towards rewarding the conversation and the growth as opposed to the tick box of doing.
Mm-hmm.
So if I think that would have quite a dramatic impact on the influence of or the importance of coaching and a coaching mindset and how we have conversations as adults around our own development. There you go.
Excellent, Paul. Thank you. Is there any particular leader, who has left a lasting impression on your life?
Um, quite a few, I would say. In terms of what they bring, it may have been you or someone else recently said this, that, leaders that are your cheerleaders, even when you've left their direct report line, just
Mm-hmm.
have a lasting effect on me. It means that I've not only done a good job, but I've built a lovely relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's one type. And I think if I think about leaders I've experienced that I've kind of worked alongside, but not directly, um,
Mm-hmm.
those that have incredibly technical roles. So I was
Okay.
thinking perhaps about your risk and compliance, technology, AI,
Mm-hmm.
generative AI, all that kind of stuff, or tax, tax regime, and reporting, all that kind of stuff that is incredibly can be quite narrow in its focus, and rightly so. When
Mm-hmm.
leaders in that area really step into more exploration of their leadership and can detach their
Mm-hmm.
leadership from their technical expertise a bit and start to grow their expertise as much as their their leadership as much as their technical expertise. That to me, that's a real sweet spot. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Paul. So it brings me to my next question. You started your own company recently, right? By name of Rock Executive Development.
Yes, that's
Do
right.
you want to share what exactly, is the offering and how do you plan to take this forward?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so Rock Exec Development as a company has been around since 2019, but it's kind of like Uh, it follows a common theme, which is slow growth. And
Mm-hmm.
so we planted the seed in 2019 and kind of been watering it and giving you nutrients over the years, but not really done very much. But this last 6 months have seen the emergence of something from the ground, and it's been quite a wild ride to try and narrow it down, right? So the proposition is threefold. One is we've got a flagship program about leadership evolution, and I've co-founder Michelle Byrne has worked alongside me kind of step by step. And that's a 12-month development evolution program, nature
Okay.
inspired, backed by research. Team coaching. So, really getting in with a team, leader and a team,
Mm-hmm.
one-to-one coaching, and then a playground, right? So there's this lovely thing that's emerging, which is how do I support coaches develop themselves? So in an
Mm-hmm.
experiential way, how do I help them experiment themselves so they can then work with the leaders in an experiential way? So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
solstice to solstice is the program, team and exec coaching, and then this kind of playground, which I'm calling full moon coach development, because you know what happens on a full moon. There's all sorts of wild behavior. So so we're gonna yeah have a crack with that.
Sure, Paul. Thank you for sharing.
Ah,
So, I
pleasure.
mean, as you and I have started our coaching journeys last year, so the only thing I would say to our audience that if you're looking for coaching support or in terms of one-to-one coaching or team coaching, feel free to reach out to either of us. We
Yes,
both
yeah,
are flexible to coach leaders and teams across locations, be it India or United Kingdom.
yeah,
So if it requires a virtual support, if it needs a face-to-face, of course, for United Kingdom, reach out to Paul, and for India, for reach out to me,
yeah,
and we'll
yeah,
be very, very happy to support your teams and you as leaders. We assure you that safe space which is free of judgment, and will definitely support you the
yeah.
best. Yeah. So it brings you us to the towards the end of our session. Any particular advice that you would like to leave with our listeners today?
For leaders who might be watching, uh, take a moment, take a breath, and think about your leadership as well as your technical skills and abilities,
Mhm.
and breathe into that. For coaches, be more of yourself, right? For me anyway, the more I've become of myself, the easier the coaching has become, and more confident,
Yeah.
and therefore the results with the leader. Yeah, and yes, step in, right? The coaching world is a very friendly place. There's a lot of peer support that's available, lots of learning as well. So yeah, do step in and come say hi.
Excellent, Paul. Thank you. So before we wrap up, I would like to share one thing from for our listeners today, that if you build yourself once, you're not afraid to build it again. And that's what you can take from our today's conversation. If this episode resonated with you, please do share with people who might benefit listening to this conversation. And please do subscribe to my podcast channel. And thank you, Paul, for accepting my invitation for today's conversation and for sharing your story. And thank you for our listeners for giving us their time. As I always say, please keep moving forward and keep believing in what's possible. And I'll see you in my next episode. Thank you.
Brilliant.